everyone, welcome to another Overrated Film Saturday. Apologize this video is being uploaded late, but I've been busy throughout the weekend. There might be some further delays along the road because since my schedule is kind of like that for now, that's probably how it's going to stay, but I'm going to always be uploading all of the video content up for you, so again, I won't be skipping anything, so it just might be a delay of when it gets uploaded. So without further ado, let me address what I wanted to talk about for this Overrated Film Saturday. And I think this is a biggie. This is one that I do remember seeing in theaters. And although I found it funny initially at the time when I saw it, I would say that I think it is a little bit overpraised for what it is. I mean, and I feel like it's trying to be a lot like another film. And I think that films who try to be like other films are just, kind of asking for themselves to be not as innovative. It's like, I want to be like this film. It's like, well, you can take ideas from it, but you don't need to copy it necessarily. And I'm not saying this one is a complete copy of this other film that I'm going to be explaining, but it does have similarities to it. And that film is Bridesmaids, as you can see by the thumbnail as well as title. Now you might be wondering, what film is this supposed to resemble to? Well, I did a review a while back of explaining how The Hangover is overrated, and I think Bridesmaids is overrated too, and it was trying to, I think, bank on a lot of what The Hangover was doing initially at that time. And they even said, like they advertised it as, hey, this is The Hangover, but it's for women. And we're going to put a woman-like spin to this whole thing. So yeah, it did get a lot of praise. It did get a lot of coverage over the time it was released, and I think there's still a lot of channels that play this film, but for me personally, I think there's just a lot of the things within this film that I think makes it suffer from it being decent or well executed as a comedy. So I'm going to kind of be discussing my thoughts as to why that is. I think a lot of the jokes, at least, initially when you see these jokes, yes, it's funny, but then after a while, it's just they kind of wear off, I think, really quickly. And I think there were a lot of jokes within this that were trying to be very crude and really try to push it, only because, oh, there's women in it, so we gotta push it more and be more crude because we need to show that women can be crude. And I'm just thinking to myself, really, is this really an area of concern? Is this really something that we need to be spending our time and energy on and making to a film out of? I mean, do we need to have a film about this that involves women? Like, why we already have a ton of films that do this. Like, just because they have women in it doesn't make it any different. And so I think that's just something that the film suffers from heavily, is this idea of, oh, I'm being different just because I insert this in here. And it's like, no, you're not being different. You're just taking something that you maybe haven't seen, and then at the same time putting in a bunch of stuff that we've already seen. So I think that's really what the film really does suffer significantly from, is this whole idea of we're innovative just because we've got women here. And no, you're not innovative just because you got women in it. You don't. No, it just doesn't work that way. And the jokes, it's not only is it very crude in a lot of the jokes, but some of them end up eventually falling fairly flat, and there's just a lot of awkwardness, I think, to a lot of the humor that just doesn't, I think, jive itself right. And I'll even admit, I think The Hangover actually did a better job of jiving the crudeness. This, I think, suffers a lot more because a lot of it is very, I think, more on the uncomfortable side. Maybe that's just me, but I felt like a lot of it was on the side of just uncomfortable and just kind of, very, just just not pleasant and not fun to watch. So I think that was really something that deterred me from really enjoying uh, a film like this. Also, I think this film suffers another major problem, and that's really the main characters, to be honest with you. The majority of these main characters are not really likable. I mean, the main girl, Kristen Wiig's character, I don't think she is a very likable uh, or engaging character. I just think a lot of the time she's very annoying, and she causes her own problems, just because she wants attention. And I understand, that wanting attention is not necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, when you push it so far as she does within this film, it's very hard for me to like really get on her side or be really invested. And even the other girl that she's trying to compete against, because basically this is the plot in a nutshell. It's just Kristen Wiig's friend, who's played by Maya Rudolph, is getting married. She tells Kristen Wiig's character that she can be the maid of honor, so to speak. But there's this new friend that she has, who I don't even remember the name or the actress. I don't care. But she comes in and she kind of draws a crowd, draws influence onto Maya Rudolph's character, and as a result, Kristen Wiig's character feels left out and whatnot. And I would buy this if this was sort of somewhat understandable, but I don't think they make it. They don't set this up really well, because a lot of it is needless drama. It is designed just to create drama for the sake of creating drama, and sometimes it does feel a little bit like reality TV, a little bit, like maybe over exaggerated, obviously, because certain things within this film probably wouldn't happen in reality TV or within the realms of reality, but still, it's a little bit, raunchy and ridiculous in that respect. And with this whole fighting of the plot and with friends, like, you didn't need to have like a huge ordeal over this. Like this doesn't lend itself to a plot of a movie. Like, you don't need to have this overly complicated plot just about these two people feeding off of getting attention, which is really what Kristen Wiig and this other girl end up doing. They just kind of end up competing against each other for influence and attention. And I think there's just a lot of problems with this film as a result of that. And again, it is really the centerpiece of this plot. Like if you look at the plot within 3 sentences, that's pretty much it. Kristen Wiig and this other chick are fighting over attention. The reason they are fighting over attention is because of Maya Rudolph's character. Drama ensues and conflict resolved. The end. That's pretty much it. There's not a huge amount to what this film I think is really ultimately saying. Like it doesn't come off as anything, interesting, or there's just not a huge amount of likability to it. And I think that largely has to do with Kristen Wiig's character, who honestly, I just, a lot of her problems are really problems that she creates, and, a lot of the times, she over-exaggerates things, makes a big deal out of things, it doesn't matter. And to be honest, I don't get this whole thing of girls competing to be the #1 spot, like, of attention seeking. Why do you need to do it? You don't need to be #1. You have to realize that there's never going to be a time where you're going to be #1 constantly, and you're never going to be the person that's going to be the center of attention all the time. You have to realize this and embrace it because it's reality. Yes, people aren't going to pay attention to you sometimes, and yes, it's going to suck sometimes when they don't take you, into consideration, but that's life, trust me. That's life. Majority of the time you're not going to be the star. I mean, And so that's why I really don't like how this film tries to pander into that of, oh, it's all about attention and blah blah blah, and oh, creating problems out of nothing. And so I think that's really what ultimately this film really suffers from. It suffers from these characters that are not as likable or as interesting, and it suffers from the fact that it's has a very slimly thin knit plot that doesn't really go too much anywhere other than, you know, this rivalry. And this rivalry is just, I mean, it's real. I mean, yes, these rivalries exist, but the way they execute it is just, I think, so poor that it doesn't lend itself well to saying anything to women's groups or how women interact with each other. You know, yeah, maybe it paints a grim, dark reality onto things, maybe in a certain level, because I do see this happen, and I think it's ridiculous, and I usually try to avoid it at all costs. But, you know, I mean, just the way that they put it on this level is just not, it's just not inspirational. It's just not, you know, uplifting. It doesn't, you know, it's not really the film that you really would want to see with a bunch of friends. Like, to be honest, Bridesmaids would be the last movie I would probably want to see with a bunch of friends, to be honest with you. And I actually did end up seeing this with a lot of friends, and it actually was a birthday surprise out of all things. I mean, I enjoyed it when watching it initially, but now that I look it over, I feel like that there's just a lot of things within this film that is just too much drama and too much ridiculousness that it's no longer a fun ride. It's just pointless nonsense. So yeah, I think that's really the real huge issues that I had with this film, but I think that's really all I can say about it. I mean, if you want the short version of this, I mean, it's pretty much the Hangover, but for females, you know, with just a different plot and different characters, but similar jokes, similar, you know, the similar raunchy kind of tone, and you know, it's designed to be that way only for the sake of, because we need to get women in there, because, you know, somehow that's showing equality. But yeah, but I think that's really ultimately all I can say without really giving too much away in case you haven't seen this film. And yeah, I'm not saying that it's horrible, but at the same time, I think it suffers from a lot of problems. But I think that's really all I can say. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care.